Hello and welcome to this video. I have an absolute prog legend with me today, Mr. Francis Dunnery or Mr. Frank Dunnery. I don't know which one you are today. Which one is it?
Doesn't really matter, really. My,
Can I?
my mum called me Frankie. All the Americans called me Francis, and my close friends called me Frank.
Yeah, well, when you were much younger, but everyone called you Frank Dunnery. I remember that in the old It Bites days. But now a lot of people are calling you Francis Dunnery.
I use my name that I was given. I don't even know why, actually. I just do. I don't know why. I just do. I always did. I always put Francis Dunnery. I think on It Bites records, I always did. I was always Francis Dunnery.
Maybe it
I
was the
like I,
fact.
I like that. I like the name Francis. I like Frank. I like Frankie as well. Frankie's what I call my son. He's Frankie. You know, it's there's a cheeky thing to Frankie. It's like I'm
Well,
perhaps more.
Francis is always like St. Francis of Assisi, so it's quite high, isn't it? It's high and thoughtful and spiritual. But Frankie's like Frank Sinatra, so it's one of the boys, isn't it?
Frank's like one of the boys. Frankie's like somebody who like go off with your wife. And Francis is like somebody who'll kind of like take you to church. That's how it is. So it depends. It depends which day you catch me on. That's what it is.
Well, I playing in the neo prog world. There's so many people I know that were, you were their main man. Such a, I've always said on my channel, I think you're one of the few true geniuses in the progressive rock scene. I don't know if that's an insult or but absolutely incredible. And there's so much more to you though as well. And I've always been fascinated by the whole astrology thing. Now, one of the things that I just saw about you on Wikipedia that I didn't know till about 5 minutes ago is that you were born on Christmas Day. Is that correct?
I was. I was born on the 25th of December, 1962. That's right.
When I was a kid, that was the worst thing that could happen to you.
Well, it's first of all, it's part of my astrology, which I'll get into in a minute. But it's pretty weird because it's not your day. You know what I mean? Like so
Yeah.
you don't really have a birthday when you're born on Christmas Day because nobody cares. Everybody's
No.
just like, yeah. Where's my Christmas presents? So you grow up like that.
And what did your parents do on Christmas? There's like they all celebrate Christmas Day, and then they go, oh yeah, and of course it's Frankie's birthday.
Um,
Or
you
did
know,
they just
I
not
like
mention it at all?
the culture I was brought up in, that Irish Catholic culture where they just, they were usually like wasted before 12 o'clock anyway. So, I don't really know what they did. You get a couple of presents thrown at you and like a Mars bar or something, and then that's it.
My
I,
mum and dad
I
were always fighting by midday.
They were
Always full on
fighting.
row.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, because my dad would always be playing with the toys, and my mum would be cooking in the kitchen, and no one would be helping her because it's 1970s. It's all misogyny, and the woman's there doing it all, and we were having fun with the scale electrics, and then we won't get the scale electrics off the table. My mum wants it clear, then she loses, got high blood pressure, veins pumping, puts a coat on. I'm leaving home. Honestly, I'm not joking. That is actually what used to happen every Christmas
Right.
Day.
Well, my mum and dad we got along really well, but the scale. I remember I had a scale electric track once with them like wires that go down to touch. Remember the
Yeah,
wires
that's it. Yeah,
underneath?
yeah,
That never worked. Scale electrics never worked. They went like,
yeah.
and then it's like, dude, no, I don't like that. But Christmas Day in our house was pretty cool. It was always it was like my house. I grew up in a very. It was paradise, and it was very depressing at times because my mum and dad drank a lot, and so when they weren't drinking, they were the greatest people you'd ever meet. Like absolutely amazing. Like everybody used to come to our house. Our house was like the central point for a lot of people. Everybody hung out. My brother was in bands, and there was always like them 70s guys, with like the feather cuts and all that. They were in like Wranglers and like Levi jackets and stuff. And my sister had her friends around, and the neighbors would come round, and I'd have my pals around. And so then they would hit the drink, and nobody would come around. So, and they'd binge drink for like a week or two. So it was just like, it was depressing. Like once every 3 months or something, they'd do that. And it was like, ugh, So but when they weren't drinking, and my house was like, I mean, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And my mum and dad were the coolest people on the planet. They were really amazing people, like very kind, very generous, a good laugh. They weren't like offended by people or none of that stuff. And they were very youthful in spirit. They were, they were kind of like, my mum would like listen to Jimi Hendrix and Genesis. She used to sing the musical box. Doing "Play Me Old King Cole," like she'd play the musical box. It was hilarious, man. Brilliant.
And your dad was a musician as well, wasn't he?
Well, kind of. I wouldn't say he was a musician. He was like, but he tinkered. Like when he got wasted, he would like. That's what would happen on Christmas Day. At some point, my dad would be wasted, and he'd play the piano, right? My great great granddad was Jimmy Shan, played in the Jimmy Shan band. Not was Jimmy Shan, played in the Jimmy Shan band. It was a pretty famous.
Oh, that's a legendary.
You know what I
He's a
mean?
Scottish musician,
Yeah,
is it?
yeah. So he played with Jimmy Shan. He had that whole thing going on, but I wouldn't say my dad was a musician, no. But
No.
he could knock out a tune, and sing along to it.
So where's the music come from then?
Well, for me, it was my brother.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know your brother.
my brother was my main influence for everything to do with music in my life.
And was he the one that was into the progressive rock stuff as well?
Well, it was more like fusion. So the albums in my house growing up that I remember, there was lots of blues albums. There was a lot. There was like there was like there was like BB King, and there was a lot of that
Mm,
stuff. But there was also Mahavishnu Orchestra, Soft Machine. I remember a band called Isotope that was in my house.
yeah, Gary Boyle. Yes.
I remember like Chick Corea, Weather Report. So that was there. So there was no other record. So that's what I grew up listening to.
Mm.
Yes, he liked Yes as well. There was a couple of Yes albums. Um, so so that was it. And I remember Nursery Crime. That would have been 1971. So I was about 9 when
I
I
see
first.
that this is the thing when you got a big brother like that, because if you haven't got a big brother like that, you're not hearing those albums till you're like 15 years old. But if you're hearing stuff like that at 9 years old, it's got to go into your head, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it was, and of course my brother played with Ozzy. Ozzy was at our house all the time. He comes from where you are, doesn't he? Isn't
Yeah, yeah.
And so Ozzy used to sleep on our couch because he was my brother. My brother was his first guitar player after he left Sabbath. And so I had Bill Ward's drumsticks. That's how I got into the drums because Ozzy brought me a signed Sabbath Bloody Sabbath t-shirt. What year was that? Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
That's 73.
That was Ozzy. So Ozzy was there then. That's when Ozzy was there. I was 12. No, I was 11. Right. So, and I had
That's right.
Billboard's drumsticks, the big, heavy drumsticks. And I used to play, we had one of them like leather couches, like tight pulled leather. And it had the greatest snare sound and bass drum sound on it. So I'd be playing drums with Billboard's drumsticks on the couch. It was amazing. So that was really the first time that I got into, music in that way. It was drums. I love drums. I still do love rhythm. I love drums. Love it.
God, I mean, that's a hell of a. I mean, to have Ozzy Osbourne, I do think Black Sabbath are the greatest band of all time when you step back and look at it objectively.
Sabbath
The
Bloody Sabbath was definitely one of the greatest albums ever. That was a
incredible.
killer record. That killer, dude.
I love it when Ozzy tries. In Sabbath Bloody Sabbath when he tries to get that note and he slides up like he goes.
Yeah,
That bit.
right,
Any other
right.
thing, you go, what the hell you did with Ozzy? It's just genius.
Totally. Where
I,
can you run to?
I'll make it. I'll make it, geezer. Don't worry.
Brilliant, man. Absolutely brilliant. Seriously.
Incredible. But what I'm interested in is how does being born on Christmas Day relate to astrology?
Well, it doesn't really because Jesus was a Pisces, so he was born in March. It's just that what they did, if you know your religious history, you know that when there was a lot of back and forth with the Romans, like whether they wanted to be Muslims or they wanted to be Christians. I won't go into it; it'll bore the shit out of everybody. But basically, they chose a day close to the pagan festival,
Yeah.
the winter solstice, on the and so they put it right next to there, so people would start to celebrate there to get them to do it. But Jesus was a Pisces, like historically or astrologically. I don't think anybody knows really, but they
They
say
don't
he was
know,
a
do they?
Pisces, and he does have the life of a Pisces. There's no doubt about that. But That's what they did. But astrology is a very misunderstood subject anyway. What people think astrology is not what it
Well,
is.
this is really what I know. This is bonkers because we're both musicians, and and obviously we both played for Robert Plant, so we have that connection with old Robert. But when I was very young, I was influenced by a number of TV series. I all my knowledge of the whole world comes from The Ascent of Man, Bronowski, who I'm a big fan of, Life on Earth, and Cosmos with Carl Sagan. And Carl Sagan came on. I watched that when I was about 11 years old, and he completely debunks astrology on there, doesn't he? Old Carl Sagan does. He really
Yeah, but
spends like
he doesn't understand it. That's why. I'll tell you
that's what I
why.
want from you,
Yeah.
Francis. That's what I want.
Okay, so have a
Come
look
on.
around you. Have a look around you right now. So hang on. First of all, Liz Green, who's one of the greatest astrologers that ever lived, she said, if you look at astrology in magazines and think you know about astrology, it's like listening to the Spice Girls and saying you know about music. You can't get into astrology without having a heavy conversation because it's not what you think it is. And it actually doesn't matter where the planets are when it comes down to it, which I'll get into in a second. But if you have a look around you right now and have a look at all the rectangles that are. There's loads of rectangles, you're surrounded by them, with a few circles and the odd triangle thrown in. Have a look, everything's like that. Look at all your album sleeves. Look at everything behind you. Look at look at your bookshelves. Every single thing you can see is a rectangle, and that is analogous to how we think. We think in rectangular, simple rectangular forms like that. But have a look at a tree and look at the shape of a tree. That's what's really going on. That's how complex our nature is, and that's how complex our God is, or that's how complex consciousness is, if you want to call it that. The shape of the world, of the natural world, isn't a rectangle. And we try to solve those complex shapes, metaphorically speaking, with rectangular thinking, and you can't. And Carl Sagan and all the scientists think in rectangular shapes. They think in rectangular. That's how they think. But when you get down to when you get outside of that boundary of rectangles, you enter the natural world, and there's no sense to it. Like you try to put sense to it. But there's things that happen, and there's things going on in the psyche, in the consciousness, that are so complex you can't rationalize them with rectangular thinking. And astrology is a tool to enter the frontier where that stuff's going on, where ESP and all them things are taking place. It's in another world. It's not in a rectangular thinking world. And so when you enter into the world, and when you enter into that other world, you have to have a bit of humility, and you can't just say, oh, well, the planets are here and the planets are there. It doesn't work like that. But when you start to study it, you'll see what goes on. It's a journey into yourself to begin with. That's the first thing. It was the great Persian poet Jalaluddin Rumi who said it the best. He said a wonderful thing. He talked about the complexity, and he talked about the enormity of consciousness and God and what is of all that is. And he said he likened it to the ocean, the whole of the vastness of the ocean in the world. And he said, who you are, he said, you are the diver's clothes lying empty on the beach. You're not even the diver. You don't even get to go in. That's how little we know about what's going on. You are the diver's clothes lying empty on the beach. And he said, every now and then, if you're lucky, you get a little waft of salt breeze. That's how much you'll ever get to know about what's really going on. And so when we enter into the frontier of astrology or Jungian psychology, which is basically what it is, it's the world of metaphor. It's the world of symbolism. So, for instance, Jesus, the crucifixion of Jesus, we don't look at it as the crucifixion of Jesus. We look at it as a symbol of the midlife crisis. And so the midlife crisis, where everybody suffers a death in midlife, we all go up that hill with our cross, our burden. That's what it is. It's that world. And then we get they nail our fat ass to the cross at the top, and we die on our own cross. And then of our old life, of our ego world, that's what the cross represents, the ego. And then we get reborn in spirit, in authenticity later on. This is the world. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. You look at the story of Snow White. The queen looks in the mirror. She says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" And the mirror says, "You are." And the queen's all happy. And then all of a sudden, the young girl Snow White comes along, and the mirror says, Snow White's the fairest of them all." And the queen goes ballistic and tries to kill Snow White. And we know that story. But Jung said the real story of Snow White is the story of a middle-aged mother's jealousy of her adolescent daughter coming into puberty. That's the world of astrology. It has nothing to do. It's metaphor. And when you get into that, it's like, oh wow. And you start to look at all the fairy tales and the stories. The story of the shadow. You've got Jekyll and Hyde. You've got Jesus and Satan. You've got
Harry Potter and Voldemort.
You've got that. That's modern day mythology. You've got Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, or the Beauty and the Beast. These are all shadow stories. So when you start to look at them and you look at the language that comes off them, it's not the obvious thing that you're looking at. And it means something to people. It causes a reaction in human beings in a place that is very in your essence, not in your ego personality, in your essence personality. And so and I'll finish up with this. So when you have a bee that goes chasing pollen, the bee knows to do that. It doesn't have like bee lessons. It comes into the world, and that's what we call the bee's essence personality. And so we have the same thing. There's something here that we do, like the bee chases pollen. We have something that we do. Astrology is the pursuit of the essence personality via metaphor and symbolism. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
I've got my hair stood on end, to be honest, because.
But you understand?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, this channel has, like I said before, has made me aware of certain things. So, I was brought by my parents are scientists. I was brought in that very Carl Sagan rational world.
And Sagan's amazing, like what he says. I don't mean like there's anything wrong with
No, I know. Yeah, I know. I knew you'd love him. I knew you'd love him as well.
He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. It's just a different world. It's not the world that I'm. That's not what we're talking about. He says nothing wrong, and in his eyes, in his lens, he's exactly right.
He sees the world as he has the belief that the world's a material world, and if you see it from that point, it works. That's one way of seeing it. When I was in my 20s, I got heavily into Gurdjieff, and that was my thing, heavily into Gurdjieff. And when I watched the King Crimson documentary, Robert Fripp, it reawakened this in me when I watched that, this idea of the void. And I've always had really bad anxiety, and I've run from things, used to drink quite a bit, and all these types of things. And that I started to realize it's how I'm dealing with the void. And you're on my Facebook, and every now and then you come alive and you start putting stuff up. And I've said it on the channel. I said, Francis is always right. He's always right. What's he saying? And this is why I wanted to have a chat with you. I thought it's bonkers, but he's right. Anyway, I'm going to link to a video. One Sunday, I went into my studio. I didn't have any idea of what to do for a video, and I thought, just put the camera on. And I literally sat there, and I thought, I'm not going to speak till a thing comes in my mind. And as I was staring, I looked out at the tree that was outside, and something popped into me about a book I'd had by P.D. Ouspensky, and it happened to be behind me as I thought it in the bookcase.
Right.
And I turned around and I said, that tree represents the fourth dimension. That was the first thing, and it wasn't even me saying it.
So that's it. That's the world I'm talking about. Yes.
And from there, I started to talk about the nature of the tree. And the videos exists already, so you've hit it. This is why this is so incredible. I'm going to put it in the thing. You could go watch it. It was done before I never spoke to Francis before. This is the first time. And I started to talk, and I eventually get onto bloody Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. And I'm saying, if you think about what that song's about, I didn't even know what it was about till this point. Of the water, the rain falling down, it going under, and the water's going down out into the sea, out into the great vast ocean, and comes back, and there's this great big circle, and we're a part of that circle. Our life is like this, the part of that circle, once in a lifetime. But we can't, exactly right. We can't, and you would think that all the religions and all this came out, right? And one of the things that I found very, I mean, this is the thing that people say, oh, you interview people, and I just end up talking to them. But this is really profound because what you've said is absolutely right. It's true. It's not even true. You can't even call it true. But what it is that
It
there's
is.
yeah, there is the way I see it. And I don't know whether this is right or not right, but being a creative type, I think that there's an aesthetic way of viewing the world and there's a materialist way of viewing the world. And when those things two come together, it creates the sublime and you get a glimpse of what's actually there. And that's why we
Right.
love art and music. There's a glimpse of these things lining up. And so the universe is naturally aligned, but us human beings cannot perceive it. Now, a few weeks back, I interviewed one of the greatest quantum physicists in the world. So he got hard materialist scientist. And I said, can you explain it? He said, it's very simple. He said, you get right down to it. You got a particle and a wave. He said, we can't perceive the particle and the wave. It has to be one or the
Not
other.
until you look at it.
Yeah, and he said, you know why that is? And he goes, it's because we just can't.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
I knew you would.
Is that what he said? I love
Yeah.
that.
And I think when
I
you get
love
that,
that.
you get down to the scientists
You
who
just
really know about.
can't. I love it. I love
He
it.
said, "You can't." He says human beings can't. He says it doesn't matter how we do it, we can't. It's nothing more than that. But the implications for consciousness, because having this channel and the bizarre, and I'm sure you've had this. As soon as you start to think about these things, there does seem to be an underlying logic's not the word, but there seems to be a synchronicity between things. Now, what
Of
really
course there
promote,
is. Of course there is.
what really promoted me to get in touch with you for this one was you were talking about Trump. And there's been everyone hates Trump, everyone
Yeah.
loves Trump. They hate Trump, and I'm looking at that. I think there's a dialectic if ever there was one. There's Harry Potter and Voldemort, Luke Skywalker. Everyone's seen it in their own
Yes.
way.
Yes.
And you turned around and said, well, what you're dealing with is the issues of masculine and feminine. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I will. But first of all, I want to say regarding regarding the metaphorical stuff that we're talking about, there's a great quote that says, and those who were dancing were thought insane by those that couldn't hear the music. And that's how it is. So when you start to have conversations about like astrology and the black, when people refuse or don't want to hear the music or can't hear the music, that you just look insane to people, right?
That was
So
good.
that's
That
that.
was a Gurdjieff quote, wasn't it?
I think it was.
I've
And
got it
the
on one of my albums,
or was it Nietzsche? Was it Nietzsche? I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Maybe.
yeah. It's Nietzsche. That's right. You're right. It's Nietzsche.
Here's the thing. So about masculine and feminine, it doesn't mean men and women. Everybody's got a masculine and feminine. They're just two different energies in the world, or that's how we refer to them. It doesn't, it's like, the masculine and feminine are symbols for, we categorize things like that. So we say the masculine is output, go forth, like what's over the hill? How do I do, there's no movement without the masculine. So if you don't, the masculine moves, it goes forward, exploration, pioneers. Everything's about doing. Like I'm going to go forth and do this thing. The feminine is a protective spirit that says, I'm going to stay here and make sure everybody's all right. Make sure I'm all right. And it's nervous. It doesn't want to go out. It's always looking to see if it's looking, like watching for meteors coming into the sky to protect itself. It's the atmosphere. That's feminine. It's a protective energy like that. And so when, people who are feminine like feminine things, because that's how they naturally gravitate. They'll like the Beatles as opposed to the Stones. The Beatles are far more melodic. Being melodic is more feminine than the Stones are more masculine. It's
Yeah,
like
but if they
blues.
had a
Like
fight, the Beatles would win.
they probably would, but they probably would. But it's got nothing to do with that. See, because we're not saying the feminine is weak.
Yeah, I'm being facetious.
It's just a protective spirit. So the masculine and feminine, where you fall on that scale, will govern what you perceive in the world. You see, here's the thing: you talked before about reality, but think about it this way. Like says for Carl Sagan. Like he says there's only objective reality. But think about it this way. If reality, right, is created by your conscious thoughts and feelings and your unconscious thoughts and feelings, right? If that's what reality, if that's what creates reality for humans, my conscious thoughts and feelings and my unconscious thoughts and feelings, that's what creates reality. If they together form the reality that I know, then how can I be at the mercy of a reality outside of myself? Because it's my thoughts and feelings and my conscious thoughts and feelings. There is no world out there without me. It's me perceiving it. It wouldn't be there. Much like a particle waveform, and it's like you won't. It only shows up when you look at it. It won't, unless you observe it. It's not there. It stays. It stays in a non. There's a non-particle waveform and a particle waveform. This is in quantum physics.
Yeah.
The non-particle waveform is like, say, like a sound wave or something like that. So imagine it isn't, but let's say that's what it is. When you look at it, it turns into it turns into a thing.
Yeah.
But not until you look at it.
Yeah. Which is, of course, space and time.
Right.
It can be seen
so
as
you get into
space and
that.
time, and then you can see, the feminine as being nature, the world that protects us, the atmosphere, and the land,
Feminine
the
is
sea.
both, because the oneness. When you get down to the oneness of it, there is no. The world exists for humans in duality. There's always a yin and the yang, which is the feminine and the masculine. That's what it is. But when you go all that is, everything that is, that's the oneness. There's one.
That's that's what I call the
There's no
sublime.
duality. There's
Yeah.
no separation between that, because it doesn't have an opposite. So nature is both. The seasons, the winter time is feminine, and so is the fall and the winter are feminine, and the spring and the summer is masculine. Starts to go out.
Yeah,
Everything's like
it's like breath, isn't it? It's breathing in
it's
and
like
out.
that. Yes.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I didn't know this was in astrology whatsoever. So this is the really interesting bit for me. But obviously, you can tell I've had a similar journey through this, and I've thought, deeply about these things. A lot of people that I can sense a certain energy and oneness, and that can be very interesting when you see somebody like that. And I've told this story so many times, but it's the story of my channel. When I was about 14, I heard Lead Boots by Jeff Beck, and Narada
Yeah, that
Michael
was great. Yeah. Yeah.
Narada's Michael Walden's drumming on that for me. I was a drummer. That was the best drumming I've ever heard. To this day, that's
Yeah,
the
he's pretty
best drumming.
incredible.
It's just
Amazing.
ridiculous, right? And so Narada was always my guy. And then you found out that Narada also played all the instruments. He was a producer. He was like Quincy Jones, and he'd played the Mavish Orchestra. He played with Weather Report. He played with Jeff Beck. Every time he cropped, he even played with bloody Robert Fripp on Exposure. He plays Tony Levin, Narada Michael Walden, Robert Fripp. It's the best King version of King Crimson. And so I had this thing with Narada Michael Walden. When I set this channel up, I was in a really bad way. And Narada heard about my channel and got in touch and is now my friend. And I
Wow.
talked to Narada a lot. And Narada's talked to me in very similar terms as you've just talked to me. And back then I was a bit lost. And he was saying, don't worry, Andy. He said, God favors you. He said, God's favoring you at the moment, which he was. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. And I had, but the fact that I had my hero from 40 years before phoning me up from Los Angeles and going,
Yeah.
Andy, and I thought, the world is not what I think if this can happen. And he could tell me the message that I sort of picked up in 1983 or something, here on a Jeff Beck album.
Yeah.
A spirit. This is what I'm saying. You recognize something. You can't boil that down to materialism. They're all great drummers, but that guy, there was something in it that transmitted me, and it went back to him, and then back to me, it really bamboozled me. And one day he was going, very much like you said about the rectangles. He said something very similar. He goes, have you ever thought about the edge of the universe? And I went, yeah. And he said, it either goes on forever or it ends. And he says, and both of those are very worrying, aren't they? And I said, yeah, it makes your stomach go over slightly.
That's like what Cal said. What that guy
Yeah.
said to you. You can't. It's like you can't figure that out. It's like, what happens?
Yeah,
It's like, well, you can't.
because that's
It
the
just-
other end of it, isn't it? And Nada just goes, Andy, that's God. He
Right.
goes, a feeling in my stomach. He goes, that's God.
Right. Right.
And it changed me. That at that point, it changed me. So I'm willing to be won over by your argument for astrology. So how's it actually work for you?
Well, it's just like the Taoists say if you pray to a rock for long enough, you can get the answers to the universe out of everything. It isn't. It's just a lens. It's like there's a biological lens. There's like a scientific lens. There's like there's many different lenses you can look at the world through. Like if I look at this box. And I go, oh, it's a rectangle. It's a wide rectangle. And then somebody's looking at it that way. They go, no, it isn't. It's a thin rectangle. And I go, it's got writing on. They go,
And also,
it's got,
you smiled when you did that.
yeah. It's
It
just
made you smile
and it
because
made
you
me
got that
smile.
Amazon thing on
Right.
it.
So that's how the world is. You're looking at the world through a lens, but in many shape, in all ways, you're looking at yourself. That's how it is. Because let's say if people who look at Donald Trump and go, he's a horrible this and that, listen to the rhetoric they come out with. It's like they can't get it. I would like to kill him. I would like to destroy. It's like, well, you sound like a nice guy. It's like,
Exactly.
but Trump reminds them of what they have in themselves, because whatever it is, some people think he's a hero. That reminds them of their own self. And so if you didn't have it in you, you wouldn't know what it was. That's how you know people have got Trump in them, and they're uncomfortable of that aspect of their nature, what they perceive him to be, which could be a bully or I don't know a narcissist. They're all narcissists. They're all screaming they're screaming at him because he symbolizes their own narcissism, and they've got this, we're good people here, we're good in an ego sense, and it goes against their self thoughts of goodness. The good me, I'm a good person, I'm good, and he is the one that's the bad one, cast out into the world, you evil, like that's, but it's really their own Trump. It's their inner Trump. That's what it is. And so when you look at anybody, like when you look at Narada Michael Walden and you go, that guy's amazing, and you can't say that that's not you, because if you didn't have it in you, you wouldn't know what it was. That's you, dude. Like, you can't write that off, and
So what
so
you're saying is, I've never thought this. So when you hear something like that, a musical hero or say a literary hero, the wonderful thing is the thing you'll recognize is in yourself.
if you
So
didn't have it in you,
so
you
it's the
wouldn't know what it
potential
was.
of you. Is that
It's
is
you. It is you. That's why we're all connected like that. So and now when you play like a Space Invaders game or one of them PS5 games, and you go through these like lands, and you walk left and you walk right, and then the land appears, and sometimes you have to stop and talk to somebody to get information. That's how humans are in the world. There's people show up all over the place, and they show up for your consciousness at any given time in perfect synchronicity, and they give you information.
they do,
And
don't
then
they?
they do. They always have.
They do. I know, and it's also it's
And
when
that's why
thing
people
when,
that's why people say it was a coincidence. It was. There's no. It's coincidence is just a way, of confirming, like, your life. It's like this is like these people show up because they're in you. You can't get rid of them. That's why if you've got an asshole around you all the time, you can't get rid of them until you deal with it in your own self. I can't believe that, it's like like when I stopped drinking about 35 years ago, and I said, one of my stories that I said, I don't know what happened, because 35 years ago, the world was full of assholes, and I don't know where they all went, because I can't find them now, because that's how I was. And people say sometimes I still am, which is true, but you carry yourself around, and you experience your own self and personality through what surrounds you. Rumi says, whatever circles comes from the center. That's the best way to put it. Like,
well,
you're just surrounded by yourself. Even the
it's
voice on
that's
the.
it. I have never thought of it like that, and that's knocked me out a little bit because I'm really fascinated about musicians, and when musicians get in a room and they play, you play with other musicians, and sometimes it's hard work, and sometimes it's really easy. And when you meet someone who it's really easy to play with, it's a little bit like falling in love, isn't it? In a way, it's like,
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
and you go, oh, can't wait to get and play with them, and they challenge you and take you, and you grow because of it. And so I start to think this when you play music there is a kind of love. Well, it is love that is between the musicians, and the love of the world around you. And I started to realize how positive that was. And once I became aware of it, then I realized that certain musicians were of value more than just their chops. Up until that, I'd always valued
Yes,
people because of their chops,
I,
totally.
I think so. Yes.
And sometimes they were arseholes, but they got amazing chops. But
Well, we all
actually,
are. That's what I'm saying. We all are. I mean, I know the Hitler in me, and I know the Mother Teresa in me, and everything in between. You've got to have the, to have the. I don't know, if it's humility or just the honesty or whatever it is, but just to know, people going about Hitler. Hitler's this and Hitler's that. But you see people they might be having lunch outside, and a fly lands on the table, and they kill the fly. Their disregard for life is clear to me, as that's how Hitler was. Just a sheer disregard for life. They've got it in them. They cast it off onto hit. Oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. Well, you do it. You kill all sorts of things. You kill all sorts of things. It's like you can't say you wouldn't do it. It's like, it's like, oh yeah, but I wouldn't do it to a, well, yeah, you would. Given enough power, your ego's so insane that
that's
we'd
the
all
thing
do
that
it.
nobody wants to face. What's
Give me enough power, I'll kill
yeah.
everybody. But knowing that about myself means I have a better chance of not doing that because I know that I'm capable of it. I'm capable of Chairman Mao, Stalin. You don't do what I want you to do, and I'll tell him, and of course I've got that in me. But I'll also give you the shirt off my back. That's the reality of humans. But when you deny any parts of yourself or you don't know parts of yourself like that, then I always say to people, it depends. Is it well? What I was Francis, and I just say, well, it just depends. What you want to pull out of me at any given time. It's just if you start fighting with me, I'll just come right back at you. And if you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. But I'm always facing myself, and it's
Well,
that
that
weird. It's that weird thing, like the edge of the universe. It's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, you come first. You. This is a great way to put it, and then I'll shut up. That the if you go to the movies, me and you go to the movies, and we don't like the movie, we can't wipe it off the screen with a rag because the movie isn't on the screen. The movie's in the projector room. So if you want to change the movie, you've got to go into the projector room and change the film. And the projector room, in your case, is in your belly button. You have a little projector, and this is your world. And you walk around looking at the movie, which is the world. You can't change the world. It's going on in the projector room. So if you want to change the world, if you're surrounded by assholes, or this is bad, or that's not fair, or that, you have to change that within yourself. And automatically the world will change like that. That's how it works. So the the world isn't happening to you, you're happening to it. And so once you start to get hip to that, you realize that all things are like that. They're all coming from you. And they're all a part of your consciousness because you haven't got anything else. Like there's only you. Like if you weren't there, your world wouldn't be alive. It's all you.
I've got to say something. I wasn't going to say this, but I am going to say it now. When I played with Robert, I was very aware that he'd play with all these bloody musicians, everybody, and he told more tales about you than anybody else. He had a great affection for you. He really did. But he said to me, he goes, there's Francis and there's Frank. He goes, there's two sides to him. And he goes, we'd do the gig, and then goes, Francis would, and he'd say, I'm putting Francis to bed. And then you come back down as Frank, and he said that there was and they go, and he loved them both, and Robert he's like I say, Robert is not one of those feminine musicians like most of us are. He's definitely on the masculine end of it,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
always pictured him on the front of a Viking ship with a bloody salty, that salty
Right.
breath of the ocean is right in his face. Anyway, and I feel talking to you because this is the underlying theme of what you've said. You've unified those two things. That yourself and the shadow. You've done a lot of work in unifying those things. Would that be correct, or are you
Well,
just aware of them?
I'm kind of at peace with myself like that way. Like I don't think I'm like bad or wrong or good or I just I don't really, I'm not really attached to that. I don't really have a I don't really have a thing that I'm like I just see myself as capable of everything, and I'm at peace with it. I know. like when you come to peace with your shadow, it was Joseph Campbell said, he said, the dreaded thing in the cave was the thing I was looking for all along. Right. And that's how it is when you, and I'll say, when the beast kidnaps the beauty till she learns to love him for who he is, and then he turns into a handsome prince. And that's the world
So is
of the
it
shadow.
courage? Is it courage we really need to get to a place where we're more settled? That the anxiety that many of us feel, especially creative people, and I've that's been a big theme of my channel, is trying to help creative people, because I think those two things are related. There's a certain thing there within creative people, the sensitivity, which then manifests as either fear, of the past or the future. And
Do you want to know what your
I
shadow? Do you want to know what your shadow is?
not mine.
If you give me your date of birth, I'll put it in here, and I'll tell you. Do you want to do it or no?
Yeah, I do. I love it all. Yes,
So what's your date of birth?
21st of April, 1968.
Oh, 1968. Do you know what time you were born?
6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Are you sure about that?
No.
Because I'm going to give you. I'm going to. Well, we'll soon
Shall I
find
ring up
out.
my mum
Yeah, ring her up. Where were you born?
in Kidderminster, just down the road from here? In fact, I hope she answers the phone, my mum.
Hang on, because we can do this.
Oh, this is
And
brilliant.
if you can get it, I can tell you. I'll give you what
I
your
want to
shadow is.
know. Could you have sold me on it?
Well, I'm not. I don't want to sell you on it. I mean,
But
so
you
one
have
of the
done.
things. I mean, you've got the moon in Aquarius, so that's actually pretty funny. That's why you're into all the stuff you're into.
Hello, mum. Yeah, I'm all right. You on one of my YouTube videos? I'm talking to a legendary musician called Francis Dunnery. He was in the band It Bites. And he also does astrological readings. And he's doing one for me right now. And he needs to know what time I was born. 6:15 Sunday evening. I was 15 minutes out, Francis. Thank you
Okay.
very much, Mum. You've done a good job there. So I feel like I'm on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Phone a Mum. See you in a bit, Mum. Oh, this is a brilliant video. This is so exciting.
Is that right? 6:15 p.m. April the 21st, which was a Sunday, 6:15
Yeah,
p.m.
that's right.
1968. All right, great. I'll talk about your shadow first, but I want to talk about where's your moon at? Let me have a look. Yeah, that moon in Aquarius. We want to talk. That's where your creativity is. That's brilliant. I'll talk about that as well. I'll give you a quick thing. So your shadow, right? So one of the things so your shadow, you have Saturn in Aries in the seventh house, right? And the seventh house is the house of relationships. The shadow is going to come through you through your relationships. It's going to come from them, like what we're talking about, those fuckers. Like it's going to come from, it's going to be like that. And so in the seventh house, it's going to be a judge. It's going to be a harsh judge of other people. And it's going to be quite aggressive like that, which is really a harsh judge of yourself. And this is one of the things. It's very aggressive. It's like, but it's also, it will blame people. This shadow will blame people for holding you back. It'll be more like that, like to stop you from doing what you want to do. Like it'll be their fault. It won't, the shadow will come about you through that way. And so when you judge others, when you get into the sense of judgment on other people, what you're not realizing is you're doing it to yourself. Like that's what you're doing to yourself. Like when you look out to the world, and because it's in the seventh house, it's always the relationships. It's always their fault. So it might be an unhappy time with relationships in life. Not that it will have to be always like that, but I'm trying to be really quick because I can't go into detail about it because it'd take too long. But I'm just trying to give you like the pop version of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so to understand that the people you're criticizing or the people you're criticizing to stop you doing what you want to do, It's not their fault at all. It's something in you that's frightened to go forward, or it might be frightened to be in a relationship even, or frightened to commit to a relationship, or you have to find out what the essence of it is. But it's the shadow comes to you through your relationships, not just personal ones, because you've also got Venus in there, which is really really nice, and you've also got Mercury in Aries there. So you like to talk. There's definitely you're quite aggressive in your talk in a good way. I mean, you've definitely got a lot. You've definitely got a lot of output. Your mind works the same way as the beginning of spring. It's the seed's impulse to grow. That's what Aries is. You know that when, like in a few days' time, the world's gonna go. Let's go. Like it's ready to go again. Like the cycle's about to go. That's Aries. It's the seed's impulse. I'm going up, and
Because
nothing's.
I'm on the cusp, aren't I, between Aries and Taurus? Is that right? I'm Taurus,
Well,
but
no, you're a Taurus, but your Saturn's in Aries.
ah,
And you're no, you're a Taurus, so it's sex, food, and money all the way. That's Taurus. But we don't want to talk about Taurus. I'm on about your shadow, and so the relationship difficulties you've had, and you will have had, like there's no doubt about that, will come from the fact that your judgment of them and blaming them for things you can't do, and then not realizing that you're blaming yourself for everything. And you need to stop beating up on yourself like that and let that energy go. The beast kidnaps the beauty till she learns to love him for who he is, and then he turns into a handsome prince. And so the journey into the shadow, which will come through your relationships, all of them, but more importantly, like your physical relationships with people, intimate relationships, but more importantly, the relationship you have with yourself and how you so easily, or even, I mean, you're older now, but certainly, it'll have had a peak around about 28, 29 years old, and another one around about 50, 58 or something like that. There'll have been a peak with these relationships round about there on your first Saturn return.
they're just they're basically the two breakdowns.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll,
Basically, you've just described.
yeah,
Yeah,
so it'll come through those two. It'll
yeah,
come through. I mean, I'm trying to do it fast, so I can't,
it's
you know,
incredible.
but this is particularly so when you see that come and the unhappiness that you might perceive through your relationships, through them, people, no, it's your relationship with yourself and how you deal with yourself. And so you've got to stop judging yourself and stop blaming other people for holding you back from what and to it sounds a bit corny, but to stop like beating up on yourself or hating on yourself like that, and understand, what, start to understand all the really positive and amazing things that you are, because you can't see them. Like, it's not that they're not there. It's just that like we can see it. It's just you can't. And so you start to judge on yourself on the things that you can't see about yourself via other people. And so they come into your hemisphere like meteors, and you go, "You did that to me, and you did that." But no, they didn't. This is what you do to yourself. And so that journey, right? And obviously, it's a journey.
Yeah.
That's the first steps towards um, integrating your shadow into your system. Do you understand?
Oh, I mean, I don't know what to say. I
But
really
let me
don't. And anybody
let
who
me tell you.
watches a channel, what's worse is I've got 1,000 videos up here. So anybody who watches my channel has watched all these videos, so they know me as well, right? And so there's a lot of stuff you've said there. My channel has gone through I love music, and everyone said you really love music, and I love how much you love music, and that's how it started off. But then when I started to turn on negative about musicians I didn't like,
That's
my
it. That's
my
the
channel
one.
went
Yeah.
through the roof. And the thing was is that my workplace, that's basically what happened, is that my bosses in my workplace, but I've had it in relationships as well, they were holding me back. They
Well,
wouldn't
no,
let
they
me do.
weren't. They actually weren't.
And
It
I
was
just
you.
went, and I was like almost like a nervous break. I've got one. I'm not going to say what the one is. I've got one going on now, and you've made me recognise it. That I am adding a story into this thing that's going on, which is quite stressful, and it's because they are trying to almost like ensnare me. They're trying to drag me down.
No, that's
They,
you. You have to find it let me just tell you about this one other thing because you've got a great thing on here that ties right in with your creativity is amazing on here. So you have the moon in Aquarius, which is kind of emotionally distant. Like the Aquarians aren't they're very fair. Everything's based upon fairness. So you're feminine, right? We talk about the masculine and feminine. First of all, your masculine wants sex, food, and money. So we'll put that aside. That's what your masculine wants. Like that's all it wants. It just wants comfort, creature comforts, and just nice time and cream cakes and music and art and just take it easy and a nice blanket and like that's your masculine. But your feminine is fucking brilliant. Like your feminine's actually quite brilliant, and this is where you get all that like whacked out stuff. This is where you're kind of off to the side a bit, where you're not like this isn't the Aquarians don't like to be normal, so they're not. They're a bit nuts, and they're capable of having a breakdown as well, like the moon in Aquarius, because it's actually quite it's they're always just slightly different. Like Chris Difford from Squeezy has the moon in Aquarius, and he refuses to wear t-shirts. And he won't eat potato chips. He won't eat crisps. He just refuses. It's just like weird things, just stuff like that. And um, so the moon in Aquarius, it comes from the Latin. There's a Latin called the puer aeternus, which in Latin means the eternal boy. That's what it means. The female version is called the puella aeternus. And so the mythology of the puer aeternus, he lived in the air. He couldn't land on the ground, so he was like Peter Pan. He lived in the air. Peter Pan is the story of the puer aeternus. Everything in the air is in the future. Everything on the ground is in the present, and anything under the ground is in the past.
Oh, you're doing my head in.
So
Right,
when you
I've
see
said this to everybody in the whole world, and they don't know what I'm on about. When I was like 5 years old at school, I imagine, because I don't know whether it was the case, that they wrote the numbers on the wall, right? And I can picture them. And the numbers is like the ground is 0. And I've said this to everyone else and they go, what you want about? I work everything out from this. The ground 0, when you go down through the ground, it's minus numbers. And then when you get to 10, it goes off to infinity to the left, right? To that way,
right,
to me. Then if you come out the ground, you go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then off to 13, and then that goes off to the right. And that's time and space. That's my picture, and I'm very visual as well. And then when I started playing drumming, I got interested in odd time signatures, all that type of stuff, because I love the relationship of numbers to time. And
right.
on this, what you've just said is,
That's very Aquarian. Yeah. And
I
so,
mean,
and
and
so
this is
but check
obvious
it
to
out.
me.
Check it out, though. So the puer, he couldn't land on the ground, otherwise he was crippled. So he stayed in the air in the future. So he said, one day I'm gonna da 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 da. It's gonna be great, because he didn't like reality. Because when he landed on the ground, which was now, in the now, what really is, he was crippled. So he hated. So it's like when you do a song, it's got to be this. It's going to be like that. It's going to be great. And you imagine in the future this great song, the imagination, and then you do it, and it's like, oh. It's always a letdown because it can't live up to your imagination of how you've imagined it to be. So the puer aeternus needed his freedom. He lived in potential. He lived in the potential of the painting, what the painting was going to be. It's going to be great. But when he finished it, it was like, and he would often leave things unfinished because he didn't want to end the potential.
Do you
So
know what my problem is in the music world? And I became aware of this. My problem is at the beginning of the project, I'm all in. And I will be going, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I will say it so rationally that people go, oh, Andy knows where we're going. I know where we're going. And if I'm left alone and no one stops me, I will get there. But everyone's always stopping me
no,
because I can
they're
see
not,
the
no,
future.
no, that's yourself. That's yourself.
No, I can see. I'm
And
telling you how I see the world.
you're reluctant to finish things anyway because you
Yeah,
can
but
get
once
bored.
I'm in the band and we're up and going, once it's successful, I walk. Don't want to know. Got to do something else
Right.
every single time. And then they're all invested in it. So I have to be a bit of a, like,
But that's your story, see. But that's your story. So in order to in order to get to what we call the heart of the matter, to find out where that's coming from, because you don't have to walk, but you do because it's a story. You're living in a story. So I won't go on about it anymore. Anyway, we did your
it's
shadow.
honestly, that is amazing.
We
And
did your shadow.
see, the big thing for me creatively is I hate perfectionism. I hate it.
But
I
you are a
like
perfectionist. You're like, that's what I'm saying. You can't live up to your own perfection. That's what the moon in Aquarius is.
it, what I
That's
found
your shadow.
creatively
That's your
is that
shadow.
I This is the
Of
thing with
course,
the
you
you.
love you love perfection, but you hate that part of
That's true.
yourself
It's
for
so
whatever
true.
reason,
It's so true.
right? That's the shadow. So when you're quick to say, I hate perfect, I can't stand the way he does this, I can't. It's not true. It's like that's how you are. Like that's what
Because
you don't like about yourself.
if it's not like that, then it's not
You're a
my way or
perfect.
the highway.
You're a perfectionist. You're actually not a perfectionist. You're an idealist. That's what you are.
I'll give you the example of um all the Birmingham rock going back to Ozzy Osbourne. I talk about that a lot on the channel. So I just decided to create an alter ego called Brummy Dave. And Brummy Dave now talks about any Birmingham band, ELO, Moody Blues, Ozzy Osbourne, right? And so I dress up as Brummy Dave. It's a total alter ego.
That's
And
it.
Brummy,
That's the moon. That's that whacked out, weird,
yeah,
like
and this is
crazy
I
moon in
know, and all the
Aquarius.
other YouTubers that talk about me, they
Eccentric.
don't,
That's your eccentricity.
yeah, they
That's the moon
don't
in
do
Aquarius.
right. So Brummy Dave's coming on. And he's going, oh, bloody love the Black Sabbath. Oh, really bloody great day. Oh, God, I remember the old days, you know. I do all, and when I'm talking like that, it's me, but it's a different part of me. And thing is that he hates me. And then on the channel, they're going, oh, that's you dressed up. So I got my mate round and we shot a video. We shot a video split screen, right? So now there's both me, Brummy Dave, and me. And Brummy Dave goes for me. He starts having a go. He's going, you're bloody saft git, you am. Bloody saft git. And he storms off, right? And then the following video, I'm in the middle of this rant on about something, and I saw I'd ripped my false moustache off, thrown it on the floor, so I pick it up, and I put the false moustache on, and then I breathe, it comes off my face, I breathe it in, and I nearly choked to death. And I felt like I went, that is just, artistically, that's perfect. That run of videos there, and I know nobody else gets it because I've
Totally do.
actually eaten Brummy Dave. I've assimilated him now, and now
Right.
he's actually slightly there now. I'm talking a bit like him now to you. I don't know why, because I've had
Well,
to assimilate Dave.
that's the moon in Aquarius. That's totally like it's got just like that eccentric, like whacked out, like just like you know. That's the moon in Aquarius. That's how the Aquarians are like that. They're just. There was a great story. There was me and my friend Stephen Harris. He used to play with it was a band he played. Well, he played with. I think he played with Guns N' Roses for a bit, Stephen. But he played with the Cult, and then he had a band in Canada called the Four Horsemen, and they were huge up there actually. But Stephen, um, we were living in New York, and Stephen, there was this Hasidic Jewish guy there with a big hat on. He used to come around our studio, and they're not supposed to hang out with Catholics, like the whole thing. I mean, I don't do Catholic, but like they're only supposed to hang out with like other Jews. And then so me and Stephen are nudging each other because he was an Aquarian, and we were going, he's only hanging out with us because he's going like that because he's an Aquarian. He's got the two fingers up. But then we found out nobody in his house was at all Jewish. He just had all the gain on. It was only him. That's what Aquarians are like.
I used to
Andy,
know.
I'm going to have to go soon. I've got
Yeah,
some stuff to do.
this has been brilliant. We have got to the end of it. Oh, I feel like that's been really good. That has. I really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it because it was about me.
Yeah, that's it.
Should have been about you, and it was about me. And when it's about me, I like it. Yeah. One of the things talking to you is I think I kept this all under wraps for most of my life, and then more recently I've just accepted it, and I let it out on the channel. I don't mind looking like an idiot on the channel. I don't mind looking like a big head narcissist or control. I don't mind any of that because I find it very cathartic. And
Well, you're feminine, right? So your feminine is what you would consider to be a narcissist, but I wouldn't. I would just it's focused on itself and it's incredibly creative. It's incredibly creative. Your feminine. Your feminine is absolutely whacked out and creative beyond belief. It's an unbelievably creative, but it likes to be recognized. It has a sense. So you could say in order for because the moon is how you feel emotionally safe and comfortable. So you could say in order to feel emotionally safe and comfortable, you need to be the center of attention. And through eccentric creative pursuits, you need to be the center of attention. And that's all right, dude. Just accept that. That's fine because that's you doing your B, your essence.
Yeah.
That you're
I
not
mean, it's
making
like
it up. You're not making it up. It isn't like a weakness or you shouldn't do it.
I
No.
just love it. It's it all,
Well,
and
that's
that's
what
why,
you're here to do.
yeah,
That's why it's easy. It's like going with the flow. It's like that's what you're here to do. And
Francis,
so,
I know
you know
you've
what
got
I
to go.
mean?
All I'm gonna finish up and say this. Um, the first time I heard of you was obviously on Twang Bang Kerrang, that documentary. You must have met a million people who saw you on that.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
The massive hand of Frank Dunnery, and your hand going up and down like that. And we went to school the next day. All the guitar. What the hell was that bloody bloke? Did you see? It was unbelievable. What was he doing? What was he doing? And then I discovered Oldsworth and all that bit. And and to see you, young man there, bleach blonde hair, massive hand, legato all around the neck. And then for so many years later, to actually get an astrological reading off you on my channel, and for you to get it so bloody accurate. And I tell you, the comments of this, I can't wait because they're going to be saying, "Oh, he's got Andy to a bloody T." Hopefully,
Well, it wasn't really a reading. It was just it was a pop rap. That's like the pop side of it. It was like a quick, like when you
no,
go, listen, believe me, when you go into it, Andy, I'm
I'm going to
telling
go
you,
into. I'm going to do
it's
a reading with you.
absolutely insane, dude. I'm
How
telling
much do
you.
they cost?
No, that I'll do you one for free. You can't afford it. I'm too
Really?
expensive.
Yeah, because I am a musician. You
I'm
musician rate.
expensive and I'm crap.
Well, if you do want a reading from Francis Dunnery, his link's down below. He hasn't just got music stuff on his channel. He's got all sorts of stuff. This has been one of the best. I'm so pleased to have chatted to you, and I hope to see you in the flesh when you're over in the UK.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm quite. I've been on the road for like the last 30
You have,
years.
haven't
So
you? I missed you.
I've been having a great time just being at home and just chilling, like being with my kids and all that. So I
Are you
haven't
not going to
known
come
like
over and do that thing up north with that? You get Robert to go up, or was that now done?
nah. Well, I might maybe at some point, but I got burnt out. I mean, being on the road for 30 years isn't fun. I did like
No.
200 odd shows a year. It was like nuts, And then I'm enjoying hanging out with my kids and just being at home and being able to get up in the morning. I
Same
like
here.
it. Well, when the money runs out, I'll be back on the road.
Oh well, next time in the UK, I'll come and see you.
Yeah, come and see us and just let us know. We'll get you some tickets. Come down and say
Oh,
hi.
that'll be brilliant. Absolutely lovely talking to you. Thank you. Say goodbye to him. He's going now.